All right. I'm excited about this next talk. I've talked a bit about my own development journey, and one of the things that was unexpected to me as a developer is just how much of the work is about the mental and emotional state you're in, not just the things you know, not just what you can make, but like your mental emotional state. And as knowledge workers, I think we probably recognize that, but it's always something to like focus in and get better at. And it takes probably a lifetime to do that. So I'm really excited to hear Christine Seeman bring this talk to the stage. She is a software developer at a company called Software, S-O-F-Ware. And previous sponsor actually at Blue Ridge, the first year. So some local ties actually for that. So real excited to have Christine here. Please give her a hand.
Thank you. We want to talk about optimizing your mindset without overclocking. This is a no-code talk, so if you are feeling a little bit overstimulated or you just need to bring it down a notch, I invite you to put down your phone. I invite you to close that computer, and I have notes and slides for you later. You can just pay attention, and we can all enjoy this journey together. So with this, I want you to keep in mind that no matter what is happening, you can improve yourself. If you're a new dev, you've never done any coding before, or maybe you're a veteran dev and you've been in the field for 20 plus years or so, we can all learn and grow here together. But sometimes we also see problems in others before they see them ourselves. So let's talk about some coworkers of ours that are encountering some issues and how we can try and help them out. So who we have here with us is Yvette, and she's a software engineer. We have Dell, and they're a designer. We have Nick, a network engineer, and then Peyton, our product manager. You notice with the letters to help us remember those for later. So what is happening here with Yvette? So she's our first coworker, and what is happening with her is she's having these thoughts. She had this code review comment, and she just can't get it out of her head and move on. She just feels overwhelmed with general chaos and worries, which same, we can all understand that. As well as when something goes wrong, it always is just happening to her. So a solution we could explore is mindfulness. So mindfulness, and this is a quote from John Kabat-Zinn, is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And that's a lot to break down. But it's just at its core a mental exercise that helps you go from a high mental gear into a lower mental gear. So from like problem solving and thinking to like a gear like observing and simply being aware of your present moment. And how I like to equate this to us, maybe as engineers, is think about it as logging for your brain. The more you know about yourself, the more you know about what you're feeling, the more likely you'll be aware of your thoughts and emotions. When you're aware of those, you can figure out the actual problem. But sometimes we learn better by doing than just listening and reading. So if you would feel and indulge me, let's do a meditation together. I thought Jeremy was going to take this from me, but he didn't. He just talked. So if you feel comfortable, get yourself comfy in your seat. And what we're going to do is a body scan together. Close your eyes if you're comfortable, otherwise soften your gaze. What we're going to do is don't try too hard. That's going to create tension. Just accept yourself and what is happening with you and your body. Focus on my voice and allow things to be exactly as you find them. Allow yourself to be exactly as you are. Be aware of what you feel, and remember, there is no right way to do this. Breathe in and out. Starting with your feet on the ground, Feel them supported and pressing down, moving up through your legs, your knees, and your thighs. Do you feel your seat firmly pressed and supported? Moving up through your hips and your torso. Notice your shoulders. Maybe drop those down. Moving up through our neck and our head. And release. That was a brief body scan where we were aware of our body. Gently blink your eyes open and notice we will be moving on. So that was a mindfulness practice. We focused our attention on something and we tried to keep our focus there. We don't judge ourselves for what happens if we lose that focus, but we also try not to strive too hard because that would create tension. So this is something that is considered simple, but that does not make it easy. And this is kind of the secret sauce, is noticing your attention wandering and then simply redirecting it back to what you want your focus to be. To be mindful at its core is acceptance. You don't want to push or pull towards or against the experience. What is ever happening, you can be there without reaction, without it letting define you. And this is what Yvette is missing. Her loops are powered by resistance. This should not be happening. Acceptance does not mean approval. It just means you're stopping the fight long enough to help you see clearly. Now, do you have to do the meditation in order to be mindful? No, but you also can play an instrument without practicing. But one of those things makes you sound better and better at it. So a mindfulness practice helps you be more mindful. You can have a formal practice, such as what we just did with a body scan, or maybe even pulling out a calm app, or however you like to practice. Or you can bring your mindfulness to everyday activities. Taking a drink of water, walking into work, any of those things you can apply a mindful practice to. This helps out with a myriad of different things. Our emotional balance with calm and centering. It can help out with response flexibility. Allows you just that little bit of time when something happens that you can change how you react to that. It gives you a little bit of a downregulation of fear because it helps strengthen that balance in your prefrontal cortex with your higher order brain functions going on there, and it helps downregulate your amygdala activity. That's your fight or flight center. So, will this help out Yvette? Yeah, now she can help redirect those thoughts a little bit that kept on being circling around. She can notice that they're there and redirect. She can also help out with that fear and chaos by a little bit of down-regulating that, yes, there's a lot going on right now, but that doesn't have to be our main focus. As well as finding a little bit of insight and perspective. Let's move on to Dell. What are they having a problem with today? So they have a January resolution list, and they still think it's April. Maybe it should have been updated to May. We don't need to pay attention to that. And they don't have anything done on their resolution list. They just downloaded the fourth habit tracker app, and nothing has ever worked yet. As well as they have every to-do list in existence, but everything is different on them. One thing that we can look at for Dell is habit building. Dell was mistaking intentions for habits. Writing it down does not make it automatic. This is a quote from William James, and this is the Principles of Psychology, and he was a foundational psychologist in the 19th century. Our life, so far as it has a definite form, is but a mass of habits. And a lot of his principles are what build up to the cue, routine, reward principles that we're going to learn about here with a habit. But let's break it down what it is. They're not just something that you do every day, but they're behaviors that are actually performed automatically because you performed them frequently in the past. And they trigger when a certain cue is encountered. And then a behavior is performed automatically. And so the entire habit loop might look something like this. You encounter the cue, your routine is done, which typically, one of the things is it leads to reward and it loops back on itself. That repetition is what creates a mental association between that situation and action. But let's break it down into some examples that we might actually encounter in our day. So you wake up, you brush your teeth. You go to work, you check your Slack. You get stressed, you eat Cheetos or chocolate. I'm not going to judge if you're a salty or sweet person. You hit a hard problem at work, you open a new browser tab. Maybe that one's not such a good habit to run into. But how do we do this on purpose? Like, we heard about things that already exist. How do we do it when we actually want to have it? One of the first things when you're trying to do something new is you have to make it a part of your overall goal. It needs to be a part of a bigger thing. So that's going to actually influence you on all about the long-term habit development, and it tells you what system to actually create. You need to think about your environmental trigger that you actually want it associated with. The trigger is going to be the starting point for your behavior, as well as you kind of need a reward. The reward is not something you set out at the end. So I want to lose weight. Eventually I'm going to lose weight. That will be a reward. That's not something that's going to help me right now. My brain doesn't work the way that is, I might get something in the future. My brain wants something now. So you need to have a reward that actually helps you enhance the habit itself. So maybe you want to floss. You want to floss more. You think about maybe buy some floss that tastes really good or feels good for you, because that enhances the habit itself. So some triggers that we have, you look at what you already are doing in your own routine. Maybe something like showering, which I hope happens daily-ish. Are we thinking daily? Okay. Bi-daily, tri-daily, whatever. So eating breakfast. Maybe you eat breakfast, maybe you eat lunch. You do you. Commuting, maybe you're not commuting. Maybe it's walking down the stairs. There's always different things that could be a potential trigger. So let's say you're like Jeremy and you like to run, or you want to start running more. You maybe wake up. Your new habit routine is, I'm going to go running. Reward. I am going to listen to Foo Fighters while I run because I like Foo Fighters. It makes what I'm doing more enjoyable right then. Then the loop builds on each other, and that is a positive habit loop that you can help ingrain that habit into your neural pathways. But you can also do it wrong. Let's say it's me who's trying to go jogging. I don't like jogging. I think it's kind of the worst. It makes me unhappy doing it, and then I'm unhappy afterwards because I feel like I just jogged, which did not make me happy in the first place. So I try to wake up, and I go jogging. And then my reward is actually stopping jogging. And then that loop doesn't look so good anymore. That is a negative habit loop where I actually reward myself by not doing the habit. Don't do it that way. So instead, I don't jog. I lift weights. I do yoga. You do what works for your overall system, not what somebody else is doing. And so you have to kind of treat it like a retro. You need to test, adjust, iterate immediately. And when you start that habit change, it may fail. That's okay. You just iterate, you retry something else, and you try it again right away. Consistency matters more than perfection. So how can this help our coworker Dell? Well, hopefully they understand that they can mark those resolutions off one at a time if it fits with their overall goal. And that habits build on habits. You sometimes have to start a little bit small. And with that, if the habit's not serving you, it is okay to say, let it go, especially if it's kind of hitting one of those negative loops going on there. So let's move on and see what's happening with Nick. Currently, he is kind of hitting some problems. Whenever at stand-up, he just says, that's not my area. I can't take on that ticket, and he's kind of avoiding those challenges going on. Also, one time he took a cloud exam and he failed it, and he hasn't even wanted to try and pick that up again. So he's not really persevering through that hard stuff. As well as somebody who joined after him already got a promotion. And he's feeling threatened by that success of others. Kind of thinks that promotion might have been his. So let's explore something that's called the growth mindset. So this is the idea that abilities can be developed. They're not set. That our conscious and unconscious thoughts affect us. And that how something like wording can make such a difference on our ability to improve. This idea came from a psychologist, Carol S. Dweck, and it's the power that our most basic beliefs can affect us. They can affect what we want and if we succeed at getting it. What you are dealt in life is just a starting point for development. So how I like to tie it back to me as an engineer is I am never at my final version. A fixed mindset will treat yourself like a shipped, stable release. Are you legacy code? Or are you code that is constantly under the development, an active phase, accepting feedback, maybe some bug fixes, and you're always shipping improvements. So you're never your final version. And this kind of comes through 3 steps. Belief, which leads to action, which leads to growth. So the belief, maybe thinking I can or I can't, which leads to the action, which is like practicing, and then which leads to the growth. If you don't have belief, are you going to practice? If you don't have that action of practice, are you going to get better? And it's about how you can put that all into practice. This is some examples of kind of a growth versus fixed mindset. And nobody is ever 100% one or the other. Just some people realize the value in challenging themselves, wanting to put into the effort to learn and grow, while some people avoid that. Individuals that believe that their talents can be developed through hard work, good strategies, and probably some input from others have a growth mindset. On the other hand, sometimes if you think you're natural at something, are you just going to sit back, relax, and say, I'm already good at that. I don't need to put in the work. That is a limiting belief. And so let's look at a couple statements to kind of show the difference between the two. I suck at math versus math has been challenging for me. I'll never be an artist versus I'm dissatisfied with all the art I've made, maybe until now. I'm not good at handstands versus I haven't learned how to do a handstand yet, this is me. I'm 40-something. I'm still trying to learn how to do handstands. Maybe someday I'll get it. Maybe someday I won't. But it's something I can always work on. And so those are really, you listen to those phrases, and they're such small changes, but they can make a big difference in our head. So how do we actually put it into practice? One of the first things is to accept that you are not perfect. Does anybody here actually think they're perfect? If you do, good for you. That is some self-confidence going on. But we all know that we can improve. Understand failure is not the end. Failure doesn't mean anything on your self-worth, and it does not mean anything on your future. If you failed at something, that is just room for growth. It's not bad. It's just feedback that you can get better. And remember, don't just focus on that end. Goals are good, but it can be bad with too much emphasis. Enjoy that learning and participation going on there, because with that, learning fast is not the same thing as learning well. So you want to focus on your growth over speed. And remember, if you find yourself discouraged, this is a great phrase. I'm just not good at this yet. That's the difference between admitting defeat and then deciding to push yourself forward. So, how will this help our coworker Nick? Well, hopefully he will understand that embracing those challenges are really learning opportunities for him. With perseverance is really sometimes how you have to learn, and you have to learn the hard stuff. And understanding that just because somebody else has success doesn't mean he can't learn lessons and inspiration from others. That other people getting a promotion does not mean that it affects him and his abilities. And last up, we have Peyton, our product manager. She's really good at her job. She responds fast, and she keeps our team unblocked. But her calendar is full. She has a ton of unread Slack messages, and at the end of the day, she kind of asks, did I actually produce anything? And it was kind of hard to point at anything that she did. Does this sound familiar for anybody? She doesn't really have a productivity problem. She has a focus problem. But it also could not be her fault. Let's explore a strategy that's called deep work. Let's dive in with Johann Hari, and he said, you're not losing a discipline contest, you're losing a design contest. And he's kind of making the argument for that attention economy, which is social media, notifications, feeds. They're not neutral. They're products built by engineers, maybe engineers in this room. And they're optimized for just one thing, keeping your attention. And so before we talk about what Peyton can really do differently, just understand that it's kind of a rigged game out there, and we're not the house. It's not an excuse, it's just context, because right now, the solution isn't more willpower. Sometimes you think, if I just really concentrate, I can do better at this. No, it's about being better design of your environment, of your schedule, and your defaults. So Cal Newport kind of defines deep work, and I keep on calling it deep work, but let's dive in on what that actually means, as a professional activity that's performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that pushes your cognitive abilities to its limit. Can anybody say they've done deep work lately? Good job, guys. Yes, and it's great and thrilling when you get to it, but sometimes it can be so hard to actually feel like you're doing that. And then there's shallow work. Now, this one's going to sound familiar. It's low cognitive demand. This is done usually email, Slack, status updates, scheduling, most meetings. I'm not sure if any meeting can really be considered deep work. Maybe there's a few. But that's what most of our workdays are actually comprised of, entirely shallow work. And all over our systems around, if you think about them, open offices, constant chat, back-to-back meetings, they make it really impossible to get to true deep work going on there. I have a number from researcher Gloria Mark at UC Irvine, and it's kind of scary. 23 minutes. This is the average time it takes you to fully return to work after a single interruption. Not just 23 minutes to remember, it's 23 minutes to get back to the same cognitive depth you were before. So there's a term from Sophie Leroy that's called attention residue, and that's your mental cost of switching. Part of your brain stays on your previous task. But what's even more scary is this next number. So Gloria Mark has even a newer research from 2023 and finds that we self-interrupt every 47 seconds. So we've trained ourselves to break our own focus. But there are things that we can do to try to help ourselves out. So Cal Newport defined time blocking to help optimize some different deep work going on here. So it's a structural fix that at least tries to help us optimize what little focus we can find in the day. And so one hand, what you can do is do your deep work first. Block your deep work, schedule everything else around it. Other hand is batching shallow work, and then everything that's not shallow work, optimize for getting your deep work time in. And so let's see what Peyton could do to get this done. So we could do a deep work first. So a nice big 2-hour block. Every day, this is the deep work. No Slack, no email, no stand-ups. Then, batch in all that shallow work. Get the stuff done that you have to do. But, it's usually messages, emails, triage, quick reviews. Do actual lunch. Do we all get away from our computer? Do we eat lunch at the desk? Yeah, eating lunch at the desk. Boo. Get away from your desk. And then meetings and collaboration, because you got to do that. You got some more shallow work. And then you do a shutdown ritual. Does anybody have a ritual that they always do at the end of the day to kind of close out your brain to tell it's done working? This is a great one to start looking at. So it's one of those things that helps with the attention residue, and it helps format your mind to get ready for ending your actual workday and then get ready for the next workday. It's the same routine that you do to tell yourself, I'm done. Move into hopefully something pleasant and enjoyable for in the evening that's not work. If you enjoy open source contributions, this is you telling your work brain, you're done. Now it's collaboration brain was ready to go. And so one thing that we can all try also is with our defaults, sometimes we need to tone it down with our notifications, our settings. They usually are all pinged up to high, that we get everything all the time because we don't want to miss anything because we all have major FOMO. Maybe we need to turn that down a little bit. And so tomorrow morning, what you can try to do is stick your phone in the other room, if you have the ability to, and turn off those Slack notifications, all the notifications if you can, and until your deep work is done, or at least, until another 47 seconds and you forget that. One of the two. And that would allow you for at least to have one context switch that you're not paying for. And sometimes it's good if you can just sit with something. So usually we reach for that browser. We need a tab. We need to go check on Reddit. We need to check on Discord. Before you do that, try to notice it and sit with it before you act on that. So how will this help out Peyton? Well, her calendar was full. It's still going to be full, but it's full and designed to at least optimize for what she wants to get done. Deep work first. She had all those messages. Well, at least she has the one thing that matters today, and she picked it, and she is going to optimize for that first thing in the morning. As well as, she can't remember the last time she got anything real done. Well, she got that done in that first 2 hours of the day already. And so we learned some different techniques to help out each of our coworkers here. With Yvette, we had some mindfulness going on. Remember, that's logging for your brain. Dell, we had some habit building going on. Think about it as a retro for your real life. Then Nick had some growth mindset going on. But remember, version 1 is not your final release. And then last up, Peyton, we looked at some deep work strategies, kind of turning off interrupts for your focus. So these are all very important techniques and strategies we can think about. But just like we learned, each individual is way better as a team. So what happens when we team these strategies together? Let's see. So we might have, there's some builds I forgot about. Habit building helps you implement a regular mindfulness practice. Mindfulness makes you aware of thoughts and emotions and can help you understand if you are in a growth or a fixed mindset. Deep work helps you tackle and think through tough material and to help you learn and grow. And then a growth mindset makes you realize the benefit of regular habits to help you improve your goals. So these 4 things don't have to be separate. But I talked you kind of through these and how they can all help each other. But there's something you have to know about these coworkers. They're actually all me there. These were all problems that I ended up having, and these were techniques that helped me. You don't have to do them all, but they do really help build on each other. And if there's anywhere you start small, start with one. I actually started off with habit building, and that was one that drove me to this and this talk. So thank you so much for listening to me today. If you would like to look at references and further reading, I have everything on my website.